Hi everyone, my name is Matthias and I'm part of the Tableau marketing team here at Tableau. I like to welcome you to our webinar about how Elinvar implemented an agile approach to embedded analytics. Imagine giving thousands of your customers real-time analytics to make smart, data-driven within your own application or product. Here how Elinvar, a FinTech platform provider, successfully embedded Tableau dashboards into their customer-facing applications using a fast and flexible analytics method. Discover how Elinvar adopted an agile approach to configuring its people and architecture, fostering an adaptable implementation process, and enabling clients to access new market insights and interpret data in ways not seen before. So our presenters today are Mr. Dr. Bertolini, Senior Visualization Engineer, Joshua Schnesel, analyst from Elinvar. Before we start, we have some housekeeping items to cover. We are broadcasting live and recording the whole session. There's no dial-in necessary. We will share the recording in the next couple of days. All audio will be streamed through your device. You can adjust your audio by clicking on Communicate in the menu at the top. If you have any questions, please type in Q&A box on the right-hand side. At the end of the presentation, we will be hosting a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, leave them in the Q&A box. With that said, over to you, Lorenzo and Joshua.
Thank you for the introduction, Matthias, and thank you everyone for joining. We're very excited to speak to you today about our experience embedding Tableau into our multi-tenant FinTech application. First, a quick introduction. My name is Joshua Schnesel. I'm a data analyst here at Elinvar. I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Lorenzo Bertolini, a senior visualization engineer who works alongside me in the data team. Elinvar is a financial technology company based in Berlin, and we offer a platform for the complete digitalization of wealth management. Our clients are some of the most established wealth managers and asset managers in the European market. A B2B to C business model, so our clients are businesses. I think it's important to note that we are BaFin licensed. And for those of you who are not based in Germany, BaFin is the German financial services regulator. What that means is that we share the same compliance and regulatory environment as our clients, the same high standards, and that has implications on versus data governance, information security. Really informed some of the ways we've integrated Tableau into our application. So what exactly does it mean, the complete digitalization of wealth management? Well, our product takes a few different forms. We offer an investor-facing application for individuals to view how their wealth is being managed. We also offer something of a hybrid solution, which aims really not to replace the classic physical touchpoints between a relationship manager and their clients, enable that interaction physically with a digital app. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you can see that we also offer a business-facing application, which we call variously the B-App or the Elinvar portal. That's really targeted to portfolio managers, account managers, working at our partner institutions, them to manage their entire business from portfolio management to customer onboarding. And that's the application we'll be speaking to you a bit more about today. We'd like to introduce exactly our approach to data at Elinvar. Being a startup was founded quite recently in 2018. And we have quite a nice cross-functional structure which allows front-end engineers such as Lorenzo to work alongside analysts and data engineers such as myself. Our work areas cover more traditional analytics such as analyzing new product features, A/B testing, customer acquisition. We also work on larger engineering projects to really create the data infrastructure needed for that type of analytics. And having engineering sit alongside more traditional analysts also allows us to essentially develop some products almost independently. Some of those tools are currently being used for data configuration, data monitoring, And we're also using that to deploy Tableau Analytics at scale, and we'll be introducing that tool to you and speaking about it in some length later in the presentation. So when it comes to data at Elinvar, however, perhaps too often in the past, that information was siloed and difficult to access and to analyze. So really, if you take a look at the picture on the right, we're fond of saying that there's so much work that people don't see in this domain. The data engineering work, the work with our tech teams to really make sure that data from various sources is integrated, clean, and constantly available to those who need it. So for us, it's about understanding the data, making that data accessible to the people who need it, and finally adding value using our domain expertise to deliver value to our customers. So an example of some of the questions we are interested in is not just to say, as a portfolio manager, how much new money came into my strategies last quarter, but really to look at that in a new and more interesting way, which can deliver value, saying which customer segments deposited that money. Was it newer investors coming in? Was it existing customers? Was it perhaps younger people depositing money for the first time? Similarly, in the more purely financial realm, we were interested in not just did my strategies outperform their benchmark last quarter, but what contributed to that? How can I start a conversation with my customers that engages them in their wealth? Really explain what has been driving that performance. At the end of the day, it all comes down to making insights from complex and varied information instantly available, and ideally doing that in an intuitive and immediate way, possibly with visual analytics. I think that leads quite naturally to our experience working with Tableau at Elinvar. Our vision was really, again, to maximize customer value by empowering our business clients to answer their own questions as easily as possible using our integrated data set. So our vision to begin with was to provide what we think of as more of a curated analytics experience. A lot of people are doing what might be called self-service reporting, and to begin with, that wasn't what we were trying to achieve. Preparing dashboards for our clients to use and interact with to answer questions. We were also going to be using our data set where we'd integrated client data from various domains, whether that's customer data, financial data, and the like. And I think something really important to stress is that we wanted this to be a seamless, effortless experience for our clients. We wanted to leverage those high standards that we have in our product to begin with in security and compliance, and make it possible for our customers to get the advantage of that best-in-class Tableau analytics experience, having to integrate a new piece of software into their enterprise themselves. Integrate with the Elinvar portal, the Elinvar platform, and have that benefit from day one. Down to is our mission of embedding high-quality Tableau dashboards into our Elinvar portal, that business-facing application I introduced earlier. More specifically, one of the things which was really important to us from the beginning was that we wanted to maintain the high product standards of our application. We didn't want the Tableau content to look out of place in the portal. And so from day one, we were really concerned about styling, and Tableau really makes that quite an easy proposition. We wanted to minimize the engineering resources needed after the initial integration project was complete. We really didn't want to have engineers alongside analysts every time we released content. We wanted to be able to iterate very quickly in a close feedback cycle with our clients. And so this informed how we integrated Tableau, which might be slightly different from some other embedding approaches. I'm going to speak in a bit more detail about exactly what that means. Nonetheless, while we wanted to remain very agile, we wanted to release quickly, we wanted to iterate, we also wanted to remain aligned with our existing agile development and deployment practices, where software is tested very rigorously before reaching the end user. And then finally, we wanted to leverage our team's expertise in data, in finance, and in design to create high quality content. Now to introduce exactly how we did that, I'll turn over to my colleague, Lorenzo, who will speak in a bit more of a technical way about our implementation.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you for introducing the company and our embedded analytics project, and hello to our viewers. So when we speak about our technical requirements for this project, we can have a look at more general embedding technical requirements that most likely every project aiming at embedding Tableau dashboards into an external application will have to address. Later, we will have a quick look at our more specific requirements at Elinvar that are mostly related to how we deploy the dashboards to production. Again, let's look at the general requirements we've had. They would be, first and foremost, a single sign-on feature. This means since we're embedding Tableau dashboards into our own application, where users have already signed in, once they then will be on the page or on the pages where the dashboards are embedded, we wouldn't like them to sign in separately with Tableau again. That would be a bad user experience. And so there are several methods to implement a single sign-on when embedding Tableau, and we have gone with the Tableau Trusted Authentication. That was what fitted our use case best. It's a very well documented methodology online. After the presentation, we will share some resources with you, and if need be, we can have a chat during the Q&A session about the trusted authentication method. First, we need to address permissioning with our embedded dashboards, meaning that potentially not every user that logs into our application will have permissions to see the full set of deployed dashboards. So we need a transparent and easy way to manage these permissions, and to do that, we were able to utilize the baked-in Tableau permissioning system. Further, a crucial aspect is row-level security in the embedded dashboards, meaning that users will at every point in time need to see only the data that they have actually the right to see. So imagine we have a multi-tenant application, meaning that users that log into our application will certainly not always work with the same institution. So obviously it is of utmost importance in our scenario not to show data of another institution to a user that works in another bank or investment management firm. We have addressed this using also the Tableau row-level security feature. Currently, we are driving this via the groups of the users, setting up user filters at the creation of the dashboard. We will show how we do this later in the demo. Last and maybe least for our case would be styling considerations. These are obviously not as crucial as the other requirements we just talked about, but still we are embedding dashboards into our application. Our application has a specific style, and it would be ideal if we could best align with our identity. So on our Elinvar portal application, we are using the Roboto web font, and in order to make sure that the embedded dashboards have this web font, we needed to install this onto the Tableau server. We can share references with you later. Look at the more specific requirements we've had at Elinvar when setting up our process for shipping embedded Tableau dashboards into our production applications. It would mostly be concerning like the deployment process. At Elinvar, we have different environments for our software, such that we can test our software rigorously before we finally, from development to the final shipping into production. Four environments are dev, stage, UAT, and prod. Environment being obviously the most dynamic, where developers will push code to. We may have situations where this environment is broken. For example, in that case, obviously we cannot promote the software to stage. The stage environment would be the place where, for example, product managers can accept and test the features. And once the software is robust and stable, we can push it to UAT, meaning standing for user acceptance testing environment. This is where internal management and especially external project managers at our business clients will review and finally accept new releases of the software, then be shipped to production. So to align our embedded analytics deployment process with this software deployment process, we have mirrored our four environments on Tableau server via the Tableau Sites feature. Sites are de facto sandboxed environments for Tableau. They have own users, own groups, potentially data extracts and permissions. So this makes them very suited to mirror our software development environments. So our process of shipping Tableau analytics into production would start at the Tableau desktop stage, where we create the dashboards, and we would then successively, like, first upload them to the dev side, and now, like with the software, we would start to a testing process, which will successively enable us to promote the dashboards through the environments and hopefully finally into the prod side. And once they're on the prod side, we will be able to embed them in the production Elinvar portal and show them to our business users. To better manage all this process, we have developed an internal tool that we call Elinvar Tableau Deployer, and it helps us exactly with our whole process of shipping Tableau into production. It makes things easier, like user impersonation to test the row-level security. It allows us to quickly and easily manage permissions, and to promote the dashboards across the environments. So now we'd like to demonstrate this process to you. And to do this, I hand back over to Josh.
So for our demo, we'd really just like to show you our workflow, essentially the process going from dashboard creation all the way to deploying that into our application and seeing it embedded. So as Lorenzo noted, that process starts in Tableau Desktop with an analyst such as myself. Now, the purpose of this demo really isn't about dashboard creation or analysis in Tableau for the time being. There's a lot of great content out there which is more focused on that. We suggest you check out some of the other webinars online which have that as a focus. Time being, I'm going to create a very simple demo dashboard just for the purpose of deploying that through into the application, showing you our deployer tool, how that interacts with Tableau server, And along the way, hopefully I'll highlight a few concerns, which perhaps even if you're familiar with Tableau already, you're not so familiar with because they're a bit more focused on the embedded context. So the very first thing I'd like to note is that we're logged in here to our Tableau server deployment on the dev site. And as Josh, the analyst, and as an analyst developing embedded content, I always really work on this dev site. The first thing we'll do, of course, is to connect to data hosted on Tableau server. Again, this is on the dev site, and we have our demo data here, a simple data set from the financial realm showing the performance of various different strategies over time. I'd like to highlight that we have here this eClient ID field, identifying which strategies are associated with which business client. So before we start creating any visualizations, the first thing I would like to do is to create that user filter, which Lorenzo mentioned, which will segment data and essentially drive which content is shown to which business clients. To do so is very simple. We're using probably the simplest but highly effective implementation of the row-level security content. There are other ways to do this using entitlement tables and the like, which we can discuss perhaps later in the Q&A. But for now, we'll create a user filter on that bClient ID field to assign which groups are allowed to see which IDs. So for this 9000 demo group, they can see only the content with a 9000 ID. C87 group, they can only see the data with the C87 ID. And we'll also allow the data team to see data from both clients. At that point, we'll create the filter and apply it. Go ahead and create a very simple visualization, performance of some strategies over time. So we'll segment this by the strategy ID, performance onto the rows shelf. We already have a visualization, and this is an attribute, so for our purposes, doesn't matter too much. Now, you'll notice here that I'm an English speaker, we're presenting in English. However, we are working in the German market, and we want our clients to be viewing content with the month names that they're familiar with the separator in Germany, the decimal place is separated by a comma rather than a point. And so there are a few ways to implement this type of localization. It's actually quite interesting the way that embedded Tableau content interacts with the user's browser locale. However, the simplest way to achieve this for now is to just change the workbook locale in Tableau Desktop to Germany. Immediately, separator is changed to a comma, and we now have German month names. We'll give a simple title of performance. This is looking pretty good. One thing I'd like to note is that if you're familiar with Tableau already, you may have noticed that these are not the default Tableau colors. Actually, what we're using is a custom Elinvar color palette specified in our Tableau preferences file. It's very easy to edit, and if you're curious how to do so and haven't done it already, please just do a quick Google. It's incredibly simple and highly effective to get multiple different custom color palettes into Tableau. Now, this is looking pretty good. We have our branded colors. However, our designers here at Elinvar have fairly strict standards for how they want information to be visualized. And so rather than going through and formatting everything again, what we like to do is maintain a template workbook with lots of different visualization styles, where here, for instance, we have thicker axes lines. This take this great Tableau feature by just copying the formatting from that sheet over to our new one. We achieve a consistent style. So now if we're happy with our visualization, I'll create a very simple one-sheet dashboard. Embedded context, we found that we have best results using a fixed size resolution. What we use is the legal landscape format. I'll drop my sheet in. Another thing to note, with this one sheet dashboard, it's not really necessary, but with real content, which is a bit more complicated, we've again had best results using the floating configuration where you can specify down to the pixel where you want content to sit, how big it is, and even padding internally and externally. So now that we're happy with our simple demo dashboard, the last thing I'll do is rename it to main. And the reason I'm doing this is that, again, we didn't want engineers to be involved in the embedding process after the initial project setup. We wanted analysts such as myself to be empowered to ship content, test it with project managers, speak to clients, changes. And so we want the embedding code to know which, if we have a more complicated configuration with numerous dashboards or numerous sheets, which dashboard to display first. We came up with this simple convention of naming the first sheet main. Now, all that's left to do is to publish this workbook to Tableau server. To a project named Investment Management. We use projects not just to separate content by theme, but also to drive permissions, essentially having the projects act as a permissions template. You can see down here, this is same as project investment management. This has been set in advance. And that means that as an analyst, I don't have to think every time I publish what the correct permissions are. This has all been taken care of. So we'll give again a very simple, not so descriptive name, add a description, performance of strategies perhaps. We're also going to add a tag, same description. And the reason for this is one of the many small things that come up in embedding Tableau. We realized that as we moved content between Tableau sites programmatically, descriptions get wiped. And so we've adopted a convention of using the tags to replace them with a simple linting to get rid of these underscores and replace them with spaces. Finally, I'll publish this to Tableau server. Hand over to my colleague Lorenzo, who will show you the rest of the deployment practice.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, so please. So Josh just created a dashboard and pushed it to the dev side on the Tableau server. Now, here you see the login screen of our embedding application, the Elinvar portal that is used by our business clients to manage their business. And so now in this case, I log in as a called with the email portfolio manager 1@. So let me explain a bit. This would be in this case probably a portfolio manager working at an investment management firm called FinTech. This firm would manage assets of their own clients and log in to our portal. So the user logs in. This is like the our dev application. We can click on dashboards. I just did. And here we would see a list of available dashboards to this particular. This user does not yet see any dashboard. Let's have a look why. This is our internal Elinvar Tableau Deployer that we described before already. So let's log into that. We indeed, we see two environments with this user, so dev and stage. And we see that the performance dashboard is indeed being listed, being within the dev side. Let's click on it. See the embedded Tableau dashboard. We're still in our internal deployer. And see also some data. So now here we have the possibility to impersonate users. So let's dig into the issue a bit further and impersonate this portfolio manager 1@meinevv.de, that user we just logged in with. See, we don't see the dashboard anymore for this user. Instead, we see the message resource not found. Please check URL and try again. So the reason for this is that we have not yet assigned permissions to users working at this investment management firm called FinTech. See the specific dashboard. You can do that down here. For the purpose of this demo, we have set up two investment management firms, one being Meine VV and then the other being Elinvar VV. So let's assign every user working at Meine VV the permission to see this dashboard. Reload the page. I impersonate the portfolio manager one at Meine VV.de again. You see a dashboard with some data. And sorry, we back to the embedding. This page. We click on it. This is like the final delivery, the dashboard of the embedded dashboard to the user. Now, look at let's test the row level security. So you see here we have another user on the platform called advisor1 at Elinvar VV.de. So Elinvar VV, now this user will be working at another investment manager. If we impersonate this user, we have the same issue as before because we have not assigned permissions to this firm. So let's do that. Let's reload the deployer tool. Now we can impersonate this advisor. We see the dashboard. Also, if you watch the line chart, the data is different for the Elinvar VV user than the one working at Meine VV. Different data. So in the testing process, we'll make sure that it's not only different data, but it's also the right data. So now we have tested the permissioning, we have checked the board in the embedding application, and we have checked the row level security mechanism. It's all good. So now this dashboard can be promoted to the next environment, which is stage. You can do that by clicking on this button on the top right. That tells us the deployment happened. So now we see the performance dashboard listed under the side. We can have a quick look at Tableau server. Log in. First, I log into dev. The performance dashboard that is on the dev side. Just wanted to quickly show you the permissions that we toggled via the tool before. See, these are the two groups of the investment management firms, 9000 and C and so on. And we automatically, via the REST API, managed these permissions. Not only on the dashboard level, book level, I mean, also on each sheet. We promoted the dashboard. Let me show you quickly. Going onto the stage side. This performance dashboard on the stage side now. So it for our demonstration. We have created a dashboard. Josh has shown you, told you about some quirks or challenges that we've had or that we have to address actually when creating the dashboards. Then we have tested a dashboard until we were able to promote it from the dev to the stage environment. And this process would actually continue also promoting from stage to UAT and from UAT to prod, where finally the end users can see the dashboards. So now let's wrap up with the presentation, and hand back over to Josh.
Find our presentation here. Okay, so what have we achieved? We've embedded Tableau into our application, and we've also created a deployment practice which satisfies our rigorous testing standards. Now, the requirements for us for this project were first specified only in Q4 of last year. In 6 months of that project inception, we were able not just to embed Tableau into the application successfully, to build an internal tool to manage those deployments, but also to deliver our first Tableau content. The reception from our clients has been very positive so far. As an example of us beginning to answer some of those questions I introduced at the beginning of the presentation, you'll see here a dashboard which is very similar to the one we just created. In fact, it's using very similar demo data. More complex, where, as I said, we're not just allowing our users to see strategies performed, but to leverage the dashboard actions of Tableau to drill down and see where that performance is coming from, whether it's from specific asset classes, see how the weighting of the strategy has changed over time, also down to the individual asset level. Similarly, we've created dashboards allowing our users to essentially do customer segmentation on the fly using cross-filtering, where they can look at how their customer demographics, their customer base has changed over time, and how those customer characteristics interact with their customers' risk preferences for different strategies.
Yes, as we have showed in the demo, we have optimized our internal process to manage the delivery of embedded Tableau analytics into our Elinvar portal application. To do that, we have developed an internal tool called the Elinvar Tableau Deployer that we showed you in the demo. This tool enables us to manage Tableau dashboards across the Tableau sites and the Elinvar environments. It allows us to review and test permissioning and row-level security issues, as we showed you, and with the result being that the data analytics team can independently analytics content into the portal without additional engineering, without the need of additional engineering resources, which allows for a very agile, flexible workflow in this context. Still looking at improving our embedded Tableau analytics project or experience, and we're looking at the different areas where we would like to improve. The first one being a finer grained permissioning and row level security system in place. That's our topmost priority at the moment. Further, we will have a look at adding localization to our embedded dashboards in the moment when we will scale our business internationally. Currently, we are still serving only German investment management firms. We would also like to improve the responsiveness of our embedded Tableau analytics, although this is of high priority at this moment. Further, it would be nice to allow more flexible customization of the embedding behavior. Also here, ideally without the need of additional engineering resources. So we are thinking, for example, about driving embedding behavior via tags. Thinking Tableau, like a data analyst could, for example, specify a tag that specifies the height of the dashboard when it's then embedded in the Elinvar portal. And yes, so it's in general about adding more flexibility to the data analyst of how actually the dashboards will look when embedded. a list of very useful references we found during the implementation of this project, and used many more references actually. We feel this is a list that of particularly useful resources, and not to forget the very helpful Tableau team and our Tableau sales representative, which were always there for us and supporting us technically as well. Yes, finally, we at Elinvar are a big team doing not only data analytics, obviously. Still, we are specifically looking for data analysts and data engineers within our team. We've shown you parts of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis, and generally the firm is growing. We currently have 85 employees, most of them working in tech, and yes, we're grow still, and please, if you're interested, have a look on our website, and if you find interesting roles, we are happy for you to apply with us. We would now, so thank you for your attention first and foremost, and we're now open for to answer some questions.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Joshua. Thanks, Lawrence, for giving this great presentation. I hope you get some information about how to embed Tableau into your products and applications and how to make money out of it. Joshua and Lawrence, we received a ton of questions. I hope you have time to answer them in the last couple of minutes. So here are the first one. The first one is about the user filters. And it's creating user filters manually for each dashboard is a bit complicated and time consuming. Is there any other way to do that?
So to begin with, I think, as I noted in the demo, this is a very simple, probably the simplest way to integrate row-level security. And we found that it's quite effective for our purposes. I think that comes from the fact that by assigning the permissions, or not the permissions, but the permission to see which data to groups rather than individual users, this is relatively manageable for us at the moment. However, in answer to the question, there are other ways to approach this, numerous other ways. The one we're exploring for our next iteration, commonly referred to as an entitlements table. So if you imagine that you have a table somewhere stored in your system, showing which users can see, for instance, are associated with, in our case, which business user ID. This table with the data which you're analyzing in Tableau, and then set up a simple calculation, essentially pointing out like that only a user associated with that ID can see content, using it as a filter in a similar way, but this is a bit more dynamic and would also enable finer row-level security where individual users actually could potentially see different content. I know that there's also different approaches, I believe, using Active Directory, but those aren't in scope for us at the moment. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested, if the user filter approach doesn't suit their needs, there are certainly some other solutions available.
And the next question is, can you explain how did you solve the challenge of clients installing the Roboto font on the local machines?
So we have installed the Roboto web font not on their local machines. That would be a hard exercise to achieve. Instead, we have installed it on the Tableau server. We have shared some resources. Let me move up the presentation again. So the link number 3 and 4, I would refer the person to these links, where the process is described in a step-by-step.
Okay. The next question is, why do you choose Tableau Server instead of Tableau Online? Is there a specific reason for it?
So we are a regulated FinTech startup. Our clients are heavily regulated investment management firms. We need to make sure that we manage like third-party services like Tableau and where their data lives. So this will be the strongest reason for this choice.
Okay. Next question. Does your deployment tool also promote data sources between environments, or are these recreated manually?
No, so at the moment, that's not managed through the deployment tool, but essentially handled by our data engineers manually.
Next question is, do you allow users to customize the published dashboards?
At the moment, however, this is something we're exploring. At the moment, we're really kind of have adopted this workflow where we create the content, but there's a heavy involvement from the clients in what they find interesting, styling and the way they prefer for information to be visualized. However, I certainly think it's an interesting area for us to move towards further customization and involvement where people are really creating their own analytics.
Okay, thank you. Next question is about the Tableau Deployer tool. Is it a tool which you develop by your own, or is it's coming from Tableau? And what did you use to develop these tools or this tool?
Yes, the Tableau Deployer, or better, Elinvar Tableau Deployer, to be complete with the naming, we have developed it in-house. It makes heavy use or nearly exclusive use of the Tableau REST API to do everything it does, be it moving dashboards through the environments, be it controlling permissions and impersonating users. This is all happening. So the front-end tool is developed and it's speaking to a service that is has been developed in Node.js. And this Node.js service utilizes the REST API and to speak with Tableau server.
Okay, so next question is about which you presented during the demo. It's about, can you show again how you added the filters?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest challenge we've had in the presentation is moving screens, so bear with me. Luckily, this is right here. So this is really simple. It's done under the Server tab of Tableau Desktop. You go to the Create User Filter option, and you're able to really associate users with any field in your data. Typically, this would be some unique identifier, in our case, the business client ID. Maybe that's a bit more understandable again if we go to the Data tab, see what the data looks like. Here, this business client ID field, and as you can see, perhaps by sorting differently, these are associated with different strategies. And so all this is doing is associating different users with different rows of the data set, hence row level security. And so after creating user filter, as we did in the past, it's sitting here, you can, you can edit that. And so here we have groups. If you expand that, you can see which users are in which groups. And all we've done is say that for any user in that group, they're allowed to see rows containing this 9,000 ID. And by assigning it to groups, I'm not sure if I've been super clear before, what's really nice about this is that that applies to all of the users in the group now, but it also applies to all users added to the group in future. Creating users on the fly when they first log into our application and try to view the analytics tab, we're creating them in the background on Tableau server and assigning them to a relevant group. And so that means that immediately even new users have those correct row level security features applied, and they only see the data which is appropriate for them with no extra involvement.
Okay. Another question regarding the demo is, do you know why the fixed landscape works better than the automatic sizing?
So the automatic sizing is quite a nice feature from Tableau, and I think in a lot of use cases this would work well. What we found is that as the dashboard size automatically, if there are big discrepancies in the user's screen resolution, text elements are kind of one pain point where they don't necessarily scale as we wanted them to. And so for the first iteration, we developed this fixed sizing really to control for ourselves that we knew exactly what every dashboard would look like. And then we do some magic in the embedding code to kind of scale that a little bit so that it looks more natural in the user's browser. But I think there would definitely be a way to explore using the automatic sizing if you were so inclined.
Okay. The next question is, in case you provided multiple platforms, in brackets, different clients, would you set up multiple Tableau server instances, or how would you set it up? Only with row level security, or is there another solution?
Can you expand briefly on multiple platforms?
I think I don't have another explanation from our client.
So maybe like the final code, like the C client, for example.
No, I mean, I think if I follow, this is really what we've been perhaps I'm misunderstanding the question, but I think this is what we've been really pleased about using Tableau is that really, even though the row level security and the permissioning system are relatively simple, they're quite powerful. And by using the two of them to interact a lot, particularly if you bring another tool into it, like our deployer tool, which allows you to toggle permissions very quickly and consistently. So we do have the ability using that tool to essentially show different dashboards entirely to different users. So if perhaps someone was a bit more focused on derivatives in our market, for instance, we could show them a dashboard that's more appropriate to them by toggling the permissions on only for that institution and for none of the others. Added in with the row level security, we're able to control that every time users are seeing only their data. And so it really facilitates this multi-tenant, multi-platform kind of approach, but I'm not sure if that's exactly what our questioner was after.
Next question is, do you have an unified data mart that serves all data sources? Is there some ETL developed for each client that writes in such a mart?
Essentially, yes. So as I'm so fond of saying why we have this iceberg slide, a significant amount of the work we've done, and I think a significant amount of the value our team creates is in these kinds of ETL jobs, this data engineering work that really makes this analytics of integrated data sources possible. And so we're integrating data from across our platform and also third-party providers such as market data to really create the most powerful usable data set. And that drives this analytics. Now that is a split between the different environments for the embedded context.
Okay, one more question for you. Do you use any versioning software for your workbooks like Git or, for example?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. We explored doing this because, as some listeners may be aware, Tableau workbooks at the end of the day are just XML files specifying, everything in the content. So it would be quite straightforward to put them on Git, and we experimented with this. I think as XML files, if you were to then try to have like some differencing using Git between different versions, it's very difficult to parse what the differences actually are. Unlike code, it's hard to see what's going on in the XML file with your bare eyes. And so what we ended up deciding to do is to use a really great feature on Tableau Server, which is to enable versioning on Tableau Server. So it's not completely equivalent to a traditional versioning control system, but it allows you to track different versions, to roll back to different versions, and to fairly quickly compare the two. So we found that this was more suited for our purposes.
Yeah, depending on your presentation, and I have one more question, which is with an HR focus. That's which country you are hiring in?
So at the moment, all of our staff are based in Germany. We have offices, our headquarters here in Berlin and also in Magdeburg.
Okay, let me see if there's coming in more questions, but it doesn't seem so. So thanks for giving this great presentation. Yeah, and I hope you learned a lot. Thanks for taking the time, and we will provide you the recording in the next couple of days. Thanks and bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.